This is The Gorge. This is a podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a topic. The Gorge is brought to you by coffee. You can donate to us at ko-fi.com/THEGOR. And it is Indie Week, so what are we talking about this week?
This week we're talking about stories. The Path? Is there an S in there?
Yes, the Path of Destinies.
Singular? Okay, Path
just
of
one.
Destinies. Cool. For the PS4 and the PC. A strange combination of systems, but it's fine. I thought for sure this game was out on the Wii, but I guess not. Or not the Wii, the other one, the Switch.
The Switch?
But I guess not. So, maybe it'll get added to, like, Nintendo's little, Nintendies.
Nindies?
The Nindies. That's such
yeah.
a dumb name.
It would fit.
It would fit. It would work
For
very
sure.
well. I actually have no idea, though, now that I think about it, how one would go about playing it with a keyboard and mouse. Or not the other way around, with a controller.
With a controller? It works pretty well. I played it with a controller.
Because I don't understand, like, the aiming for attacks.
It just becomes direct control.
Okay.
So you just use the analog stick to move around like you would any other normal game.
Okay. Boy, that kind of sounds like a nightmare for counters, though.
I ended up not using them.
Oh.
Like, ever.
Oh, man, I would die. I would literally die. Like, my entire combat, like, structure was based off of countering, and it worked very, very well for me. So yeah, we're talking about stories. The Path of Destinies. It's a good little game. It's made by, made by ex-Ubisoft devs who went off and founded a cutesy little indie studio, and they made themselves a nice little Unreal Engine 4 game.
Yep. It's one of those things where, like, you know, what we love about indie games is that they're always willing to try something new with their storytelling or with their mechanics, and this game leads heavily into, like, playing with presentation and with, like, taking a familiar concept and adding a new fun, like, element to it.
It does a lot of things really well, and it does a lot of things really poorly, and it's a game that I could see. Hopefully it sold well. I would love to see this game get a sequel where they kind of iron out some of the hiccups, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of those games where it's like, I hope that they pull, like, a Supergiant and they make a kind of spiritual successor to it, kind of like the way Transistor is a spiritual successor to Bastion. Yeah. Because, yeah, the formula they have is really good, and there's some parts of it that don't quite work as well, and I think now that they have this experience under their belt, I would love to see more like it, because, boy, it's fun.
It's a fun little romp. I was gonna check to see how much it cost on Steam, but my internet's being weird today, and Steam just wouldn't connect. So, I don't know how much it is on Steam. I know that I think I got this one for you for Christmas, and maybe one other, or is it just this one?
You got me this one, and...
Was it Hyper Light Drifter or Cosmic Star?
Yes, Hyper Light Drifter.
Okay.
That was it. Okay. Yeah.
Which we need to play at some point.
Yeah, we do.
We'll get around to it. But this one, I got this one on Steam sale, like the Christmas Steam sale. It was like 80% off. I got both of us, both copies cost altogether like $6. So I think it was like $3 a piece. And so, yeah, that's really good. If you can get it for like $9 or less, then you're getting a good bargain for the amount of stuff in the game, I think. And enough kind of unique concepts and stuff, even if it kind of stumbles at the finish line. Enough unique concepts and stuff that it's worth your time and your money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. The whole like, I guess, gimmick or like the thematic part of the game is when I first started playing it, you know, before you got to the part, I was like, okay, well, this is a fun little like top-down hack and slash. It's very simple. You have your basic counter system, your dashing, your grappling hook thing, you know, your standard combo set. And then you get to the actual heart of the game,
right.
And I was just like, oh Oh,
that's cool.
Oh, that's really awesome.
It's very cool. It's a game concept that, like, the idea of, and I said this to you in Discord chat, we don't see a lot of, like, little indie titles trying the whole choose your own adventure, concept, even though I feel like indie games kind of lend themselves to it very well. Because, like, little pared down kind of ideas, it kind of lends itself to it really well. This game does a neat thing with its choose your own adventure concept. Well, you know, I don't really want to spoil too much because I think there's just enough to talk about mechanically without having to actually spoil the plot, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to talk about it because, like, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but, like, yeah, mechanics-wise, there's... What I really like about it is that, for one thing, you're given all of your moves right at the start.
Yeah, I do too.
I like that, and then your upgrade tree is just enhancing those in different directions.
Yeah.
It's not the most, like, unique or, like, bombastic skill tree ever, but, like, the things that you get are designed to help your future encounters, like, help you get, like, more efficient at your future encounters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically.
Absolutely. And it's neat. There's just enough variety in combat skills and to make sure that you and I played two very different games. Obviously, you didn't do counters at all, so you and I played two very, very different games because I am, like, super counter like focused, so I relied a lot on like, the time stop system is really great. There's a final tier time stop where if you counter at the last possible second, it actually freezes time for about 2 to 3 seconds. Which helps tremendously in like really big encounters because you know.
You played very defensively, and whereas I built my Renardo, I guess my Renardo ended up being very aggressive. I got shield breaker and the ability to zip around the battlefield, with no, like, distance limit. I got the ability to one-hit KO enemies after a certain combo threshold. So there's just enough variety that you can have a different experience playing this game. And just having the same kind of general moveset throughout.
Yeah, and it all feels kind of satisfying. It's a very, like, Batman Arkham Asylum style game where you kind of hop back and forth between enemies, and so you're not really ever focusing on one enemy. You're kind of doing a little dance around the battlefield where you'll hit one guy, and then you'll hit another guy, and then you'll pop back to the other guy, and just kind of like, you're doing a lot of jumping around on the battlefield. And that kind of makes it all feel, like, fast and kinetic. It feels very punchy, like, when hits land, and it all feels, like, cool and responsive, and when you get into, like, a good flow, you feel like you're, like, you've really kind of got an understanding of the system, you know, like, of this combat system. Right. It makes you kind of feel like, as you master it, you get a sense of that mastery. And I think that's really fun. I like systems that do that, like we said about Horizon and stuff, games that make you feel like, oh, I'm learning the way this game works.
Right. It's all about taking a very simplified system and then giving you different ways you can approach that system to kind of personalize your own experience with the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, it's just, like, it was really fun. The whole time I was playing this game, I was like, man, I'm actually really, like, weirdly enjoying the combat, like, part of the game, because I thought it was going to be more, just based off, like, the Steam store page and kind of what I had heard from, like, word of mouth, that it was more story-based. I didn't realize there would even be, like, a major, like, combat system in this game, you know?
Right.
Because I didn't watch the trailer thing on the Steam page.
I expected a lot more puzzles than there ended up being.
Yeah, me too. I was very much more expecting a puzzler.
I was expecting way more heavy on the adventure side than the action side, and then I was pleasantly surprised by it. There's some issues with it. It can get repetitive because once you kind of build your character, you don't really have the points to go back and build a different play style.
Yeah, unless you're going for, like, every ending, and I can't imagine anybody taking that amount of... I really enjoyed this game, but I don't think I could ever do more than the requisite 5 or 6 playthroughs to get to see the true ending, because it is very repetitive. It lasts exactly as long as it needs to last if you're playing it efficiently. You know,
when you're nearing like the true end game, you are just starting to kind of feel the fatigue of doing this again and again. But by the end, you come away pretty satisfied with it. It's one of those, like, this is a solid 7.5 out of 10.
It's a 7.5, maybe an 8 if you're feeling generous. It's good. It's not great, but it's worth the price tag. It's like worth the price of admission, and it's a good way to kill. I burned through it all on a Sunday. I literally binged the whole thing yesterday. And I thoroughly enjoyed all of it. I did, but
it's one of those games where, like, you kind of, like, you put it down for a little bit, and then, like, a half hour later you're like, I want to get one more level done. I'll start it up for one more level just I definitely feel like it wasn't made to be binged in a No,
day.
it was, you were supposed to kind of, like, put it away for a little bit and then come back to it later and kind of increment your way through it, basically.
But my homework was due today, as they say, and I have never been good about doing things, like, on time. I've always done shit at the last minute, and that even implies with video games. But hey, I enjoyed it. The only problem, the one major problem I have with the game is that, like, man, can I, like, get some, fucking boss fights?
Yeah, one of the other things that, like, kind of hinders it is that there's a severe lack of enemy variety.
Even, the enemy variety, there we go, is fine, but, like, there are no boss fights to kind of act as, like, big, oh man, a test of your abilities kind of thing. Yeah,
you're never fighting anything but
grunts.
Mooks. Yeah. You never get anything that kind of, like, forces you to kind of confront a different type of foe, you know?
Yeah.
A big monster, or even just, like, a duel between you and one other, strong character,
And they kind of keep hinting at it a bunch of times.
Yeah. There are hints within the story of, like, having confrontation. Those confrontations either, like, don't end up happening, or they just kind of get blown over.
Yeah, they kind of happen, like, off screen in a way, and I was looking forward to fighting the evil emperor, or fighting the whatever, any number of characters.
Yeah. You go to these locales, and, like, there are occasional mentions to, like, oh, the fauna is being corrupted, or, like, oh, who knows what secrets lie within here, and then you don't really get any different enemy besides, like, here's another group of mooks for you to cut down.
Yeah, like, at the beginning of the game, I really thought, like, oh, cool, I'm gonna get to fight Zenobia at some point,
Yeah.
But no, you don't. She's like a magic person, but literally you never see her, like, do any magic-y stuff on screen. And I was like, I thought for sure, like, we would get, like, the evil emperor, you'd fight Zenobia, like, characters like that. You'd think, like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But no, it's just mooks the whole time.
Yeah.
And it kind of wears down on the experience sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure. And even, there isn't even, like, any sort of, like, even something similar as, like, coloration in the enemies, it's all the same 5 or 6 models, basically, that you're going up against the whole time.
I've killed a lot of ravens. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, so the one, like, the biggest thing I would, like, do to improve, like, if they did make a sequel or, like, a spiritual successor, is definitely boss fights and enemy variety. And that's, like, the biggest things, and, like, they are pretty hefty in a game like this, but, that it's not the focus, but it's like they could have still put some effort put some bit more, like, work into that part.
It would have been nice to have at least, like, there's not even a final boss. The game just ends. It would have been cool if, like, so there's 4 technical, like there's a bunch of branching paths in the plot, but there's 4 endings. Like, there's 4 technical endings, and they all kind of lead you to different places. Anyways.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have 4 different final bosses or something, you know?
Yeah, or even just, like, when you are on the path to the absolute true ending, like,
yeah,
that culminates in the only boss fight, and then you can make a really big deal out of it.
That's what I really thought was going to happen. I thought, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We've unlocked the true ending. Here we go. We're off to the real, for reals final battle. And we're going to go and earn our happy ending. And at the end of it is going to be... Because they kept referencing it as the final battle. So I thought, like, oh, there's going to be a final battle in, like, video game terms. You know, there's going to be a boss. No, there's no boss.
No, it's just
ends.
A lot more grunts.
And it's a lot more grunts. I did hit a 100 combo in that final fight though, which felt good.
That's still pretty good.
I unlocked, like, just through playing the game normally and, like, playing it very, very efficiently. I unlocked, like, 75-80% of all the achievements.
Yeah.
Which was great. So, like, thanks, game. I appreciate that. Yeah, when you play it, like, counter-based, you get good at building that combo modifier. It's a ton of fun. Like, yeah, the combat system was actually, like, really, really fun. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man, can I get more of that? Can I get some boss fights, please?
Yeah, I would love to see them take this exact style of gameplay and just add more to it, basically.
Add more to it, add a little bit more variety, add more areas. There's, like, 5 or 4.
Yeah.
No, there's
you
like 6 or 7, something like that.
Yeah, there's like six or so areas throughout the whole thing that you keep going back and forth to, basically.
That can get kind of tedious too. After I finished, like, my first story, it was like a new area has opened. I was like, oh sweet, maybe this will get me a bunch of new places. No, it's just one. Oh.
Yeah, you still go through only a couple handfuls of them.
But, and, you know, like, I can't bitch too much because it is Indie Week.
Yeah.
And I got the games for $3, but I'm gonna.
You definitely get your money's worth paying, like, $15 to $10 for this game, for sure.
But, you know, the fact is that you can't really give it a higher score, a mental score either, because it's like, I've done this same section like 6 times now.
No, like, it doesn't forgive the faults, but, like, you know, it kind of, like, softens them a little bit, because, you know, it is a much smaller team, and you can't really, you know, if this was a full-priced $70 or $60 game, like, made by a fully staffed professional studio, there's no way we would be talking about it with as much like praise and, you know, and vigor.
Yeah,
you know,
but it does what it does well with what it has, and I just enjoyed like playing it a lot.
Yeah,
which I didn't expect. I was like, I'm going into this for the story, and then I came out and I was like, I actually just really enjoyed playing that video game. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it has a charming little hook in that all of the voices are done by one guy. And that one guy is a trooper, because he can do a lot of accents.
I adore the narrator, and I loved it in Bastion.
Yes.
And I love the kind of faux narrator we get in Transistor, because the narrator in Transistor is, like, not really narrating, he's just commenting on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and of course in Bastion, you know, your narrator is a character too, but he's, you know, actively telling the story, but the narrator in stories is so fun.
He's so fun.
He does such a fantastic job with his performance. He does all these little character voices. I love when he does the far-speaking frogs.
Yes.
And he has to do, like, the character's accent in the frog voice.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, he does a great job, like, differentiating all these characters. I mean, he does such a good job of, like, having multiple voices that there are parts, because it's read like somebody is telling you a story. All the lines are read like, well, blah 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 blah, said Renardo, and you know, he does such a good job of differentiating these character voices. A few times I was like, you don't need to actually add that said Renardo part. I know who's saying it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
it's a lot like the experience I had with it is I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and that's what it felt like, and I thought that really fits with the idea of it all being stories, you know?
Yeah.
It's being presented to you like an audiobook, and yeah, like you said, like, there are certain times when I'm listening to a book, and I'm, like, listening to the narrator, and I'm like, you don't need to say which character it is. Like, I can tell which character it is.
You're doing a good job, friend.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I know who you are right now. And yeah, his accents are so much fun, and, you know, like, you'd think that Renardo would kind of sound like the narrator, but no, not really. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, you'd think, like, Renardo and the narrator would have the same voice, because, you know, just conventions. But no, like, Renardo has a very different voice, and Lapino has a great Scottish ? Accent.
Yeah, he's way more, like, Cockney about it, or like, yeah. And Zenobia is very charming and elegant, and
it's funny to hear, like, a dude do, like, a lady voice.
Yeah. And you get the frogs, and you know, the what's his name? Calaveras,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like his funny, like, meow voice.
Yeah.
And there's like the one frog scholar who has, like, a really stereotypical nerd voice, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was so good.
The narrator is half the charm of this game is the narrator, and also just, like, overall the character designs are also, like, a big part of that.
Yeah, they're really good. They're really solid.
You know, Renardo is your stereotypical dashing rogue adventurer.
Yeah.
He's got the eye patch and the big coat and the big sword, and, you know.
Yeah, and all of the character this is such a small thing, but, like, the character portrait art and, like, the little storybook art is really good and fun.
Oh, I would love a compilation of, like, every little, like, card, you know, like, you know, every little portrait that gets sketched. I love those.
And there's a lot of art in this game.
There's a lot,
there's a ton. Like, every little choice card is different, and then you have a ton of different, like, storybook page parts, and so those are all drawn assets that somebody spent the time to make, and I'm like, there's a lot of effort that's gone into this little cutesy game. That's nice, you know?
And I also really love how, like, none of the poses they do in those designs are, like, really all that dynamic.
Right.
You know, Renardo's always, like, very tall, like, very straight up and tall, and he's, like, always, like, tilted to the side, like, his whole body is tilted, you know?
Yeah.
There's the one where they're talking about, like, Renardo and Zenobia in Swordfu school.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of, like, waving little arms around, but, like, they're completely standing straight up.
Yeah.
And it's cute like that.
It's cute and fun. It has a lot of charm. The whole game is just, like, you can just boil it all down to, like, it's charming, you know?
Yeah.
And there's, like, a huge difference between, like, a game that is funny and a comedy game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
you know,
Yahtzee has like a differentiator between that. I can't remember the exact joke, but, you know, he said that there's a huge difference between a comedy game and a game that's actually funny. There's
wit.
Yes.
You know, this is a witty game.
Every now and then I was cringing because they make, like, meme references and stuff, and I'm
yeah.
like, this game is dating itself like this.
There's funny. I have an example of one that I liked and one that I, like, rolled my eyes at. Mm-hmm. There was one where, you know, when you're hookshotting, occasionally the narrator will have a quip about hookshotting. Yeah. And the quip for the one I liked was, you're zipping around and he says, he was like, Renardo wondered who put all these pylons here, and he wondered if they should construct additional pylons.
Yeah, construct additional.
And I was like, okay, that one's good. Right. You worked that one in. And then there was one where he's talking about the moving platforms, and he says they were built by Elon Muskrat.
Yeah, and that. And one
I was like,
okay,
that's a little bit too on the nose.
That's a reach.
Yeah.
But a lot of one of my favorite, like, running jokes is the fact that the floating platforms have inscriptions, and they're all, like, increasingly ridiculous. Like, one that says, like, you know, the inscription says, no skateboarding. And I was just like, I don't know why that one specifically, that one, and one that was, like, the inscription says, send the goat across first. And I just...
Yes! That one was one of my favorites.
I loved it, yes. It was like, some of them are so funny and charming, and the writing is just like, it's on point, and it kind of makes jokey jokes even in serious moments, but like not too jokey joke. Like it does a good job of selling you on kind of its like on some of the serious stuff without taking itself so self-seriously at the same time. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, it does a good job, like especially some of these endings when you get to the final battle and it is way more tense, and like you will get a moving platform joke or a hookshot joke, and it's like that doesn't really like ruin the mood,
right,
but it kind of alleviates it back to you still having just like a fun adventure.
Yeah, it's still like a fun good time adventure story. Like the Iblistone plot line is like weirdly dark.
Yeah.
For like this little funsy game, and I was like, I'm having a good time. I'm not having a good time anymore. Yeah, it's like weirdly dark. I do like that. I want to like go through, and I didn't have the time, obviously, because I did my homework at the last minute. I wanted to watch some of the other endings because I only got like 5 endings. And I wanted to go through and watch some of the other endings, but the ones I did get, the number of times you can just kind of die horribly is really, it's like a true choose-your-own-adventure book, you know?
Yeah.
Because they always ended, you died in some horrible, slightly cosmic way, you know?
Yeah.
The unspeakable horrors waiting for you at the end of a choose-your-own-adventure story.
Yes, exactly. There's 100 endings to this game, and only one of them you survive in, basically.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, because like Leonardo is at the end of the day an idiot.
Yes.
But I really hold up, I'm like trying to sneeze. No, it's gone.
Okay.
But yeah, I got 5 of the many endings.
Okay, so let's actually talk about that, because I love this gimmick so much.
The gimmick is good. The gimmick is better than I expected.
So yeah, if you haven't played it, this is your chance to back out of the podcast now and then come back, because I don't want to ruin this for anyone, because I think it's just like the funnest thing ever.
Yeah, it's good. It's charming. I kind of knew. I had an idea of what was coming, and yet I was surprised by how they pulled it off, you know?
Yeah. So, the gimmick of the game being that all of your branching pathways are hypothetical situations that you are reading about in this prophecy book.
Yeah, magic book.
And so when you beat the game the first time, after you make your decisions, and you are flung back and you realize that all of it was just this hypothetical situation, and you learn your first truth about the whole thing, and it's like, oh, that's really cool.
It's a good gimmick. It's a cool way to, I guess, kind of like a Groundhog Day storyline, or like
What I was thinking about is this game takes a point and click adventure game or like a visual novel. And applies that to an action game. Yeah,
with all the various and sundry bad ends.
Yeah, and there are a great, and like, you know, mechanically you're going through the same levels over and over again, but like the way they wrap the story around those, you're always doing something different, or you have a different motivation for going to this area this time, you know?
Yeah, and I do appreciate that with the sword door mechanic, you kind of get the obligatory Dark Souls reference, where you're opening little shortcuts through levels and stuff.
Yeah, alternate paths to kind of mix up the thing, and you can get rewards. And like we said early on, like all of your skill mechanics are designed to make the battles quicker and more efficient, because you're going to go through them over and over again.
Right. And that progression also is tied to, like, the levels themselves. You can actually, if you kind of, after you've done them enough times, you're going, like, oh, I can open up this door and go this way, and it'll let me skip, like, huge portions of the level to let me get to the ending faster. So, like, I appreciated that. They just needed more of that.
Right, exactly. And but I love that whole idea of giving you a reason, like a story, like an in-game reason to keep replaying the game. You know, a lot of games do have like alternate endings and branching pathways like that. But this one bakes it into its core mechanic. Doki Doki Literature Club kind of did that. Where you see it. Actually, you do see a lot of it in a meta sense, like Undertale or Doki Doki Literature Club, where you the player are restarting the game, and that is affecting the stuff that happens within the game. Right. But this game doesn't do the meta doesn't do it in a meta way. It does it in an in-game way, where the universe way. Yeah, where the protagonist is the one who is going through the cycles again.
Yeah, and as he goes, he's kind of learning. Like I like the concept of 4 kind of immutable truths. Like no matter what ways you take or what steps you take, you always kind of have these 4 facts. Like those don't change.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat. It was cool that they actually took the time to make the stories. If you have unlocked like the Lupino is a traitor ending, then every time you leave Lupino to die, you always Renardo goes, well, maybe he was actually kind of an asshole, and I like that.
You get like when you go through a cycle again, and say you choose that same objective, you'll get more dialogue based on what you've learned.
Right.
When if you find out, because I think everyone finds out Lupino is a traitor first. I think that's just like everyone's naturally aimed to rescue Lupino first.
Yeah, I think so too. Because it's kind of like it's like, well, here's this big, it's an ancient weapon, and that feels kind of like a later game thing, and you're like, well, let's try for the friend first and see what he has to say.
When your goals are, well, here's this ancient weapon that you can use, or you can rescue a friend,
Right.
Like, people are going to empathize and pick the friend first and go down that pathway, and that does tend to generally lead towards Lupino as a traitor. And then if you do that mission again, Renardo will be like, he didn't know why he was going through this again.
Right.
He knew that Lupino was a traitor, but maybe this time he could convince him otherwise,
right, Yeah, it's clever. It's nice to see
the game,
your knowledge acknowledged, whatever.
Yeah, the game kind of does trick you, though, because it does have a lot of dialogue where it's like, maybe Renardo could overpower it this time, or maybe he could convince Lupino to do this instead, and it's like, no,
you can't.
The truths are immutable, and you cannot go against them.
Yeah, but if you gotta use a little bit of common sense, you can. At least I did. I had no problems unlocking all 4 truths one right after another.
The one that I had a problem with was unlocking Zenobia's, because there is no immediate beat path to it. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to get a little bit creative with hers. You have to start one and then abandon it. And I thought I had one. I ended up getting 3 Lupino endings, because I was like, oh, I know what to do. I'll get the. I thought I had one okay, well, I'll get the Iblis Stone and then I'll abandon that I'll get the Sky Ripper, mm-hmm. and I'll abandon that for Zenobia's sake. And then as the plot progressed, Lupino made himself more and more present, and then the game kind of pushed me into Lupino as a traitor,
right.
And I was like, no, I was hanging out with Zenobia. What happened?
What's going on? I got the traitor one first, and then I got Zenobia, and then I got the Iblis Stone, and then I got the Sky Ripper one last. The fact that the Sky Ripper will destroy the universe. I kind of like the weird cosmic horrors that they kind of they snuck a weird amount of cosmic horror stuff in this game. They're like, the old gods are dead and the islands are alive, and
I kind of like when you have a game like this. It's kind of like cutesy fantasy,
mm-hmm.
where they just kind of say and then name something, and then kind of expect the audience to just roll with it.
Yeah.
The old gods. Oh, I guess there are old gods in this game.
There are old gods in this game. It's interesting. The little sneaky bits of kind of creepy eldritch horror that they stuck in this game is really fun, I guess. It's interesting world building. They just absently in a note you can find in one branching part of a level is the islands are alive and they're moving towards something, and I'm like, excuse you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could build a game on that.
On that concept alone. So I actually would really like to see like a Stories 2, like not just like a spiritual or like a spiritual successor, but surprise, it's set in the same universe kind of thing.
Yeah. Make an Ivalice saga out of this world.
Yeah, just kind of make it a little surprising, but there's just enough hints of interesting stuff in this that I hope it does well enough to get a second one, because I would like to see this concept explored better, and there's a lot of really, like I said, the little plot elements they do introduce in the game, like the Iblis Stone, especially the Iblis Stone. I don't know, that whole storyline was like really interesting.
I want to know what endings did you get to reveal that truth?
The Iblis Stone?
Like, what? Yeah, out of the 4 truths, like what endings did you get to learn those?
I should have written those down.
Well, you don't have to like name them. You can just say like if you remember what happened in them.
Like I said, I was super efficient. I got 4 endings and then a true ending. So like I got 5 endings and played it like a baller, basically. Let me think. I got I'm gonna run away with Zenobia, and then Lupino kills me at the last possible minute, you know?
Yeah, that's the one I got. So that was that's the one where you rescue Lupino, and then you capture Zenobia,
but you
and then
don't
you
take
don't
her to be interrogated.
Yeah, and then it's the ending where it's like a hero who always follows his heart, basically. I think is what they call it.
Yeah, and so you go and you're about to run away with Zenobia, and bam, you get hit by a crossbow bolt. The end. I got I got 2 Skyripper endings, and one of them somehow revealed the Zenobia's love for me. I don't exactly know how, but I'll take it, by God. Where you go and you assemble the Skyripper, and then instead of taking it to the scientists, you take it to be tested on the battlefield, and then you take it to the final boss. And then as you get there to face down the Emperor, Zenobia is there. And I actually wrote this I have my own notes on my phone. I wrote this in my notes, and the one thing I have about this game is that sometimes the writing is a little unclear. You know?
Yeah, sometimes.
Where they sometimes will drop info on you, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. And I was like, I would like 1 paragraph of explanation, thank you. Just a little bit to kind of be like, well, this is this, and blah, blah, blah. Because, okay, this is another, like, tangent thing. But at the beginning of the game, they make mention of 2 mothers, and they're 2 completely different mothers. And I was like, why would Renardo promise his mother to take care of that kid? And then I remembered, oh, no, he's talking about the kid's mother. You know? Peter?
Yeah.
Anyways. So, like, that's a little tangent, but it kind of comes back around when I say that I got an ending where I didn't realize what was happening is that Zenobia is freezing you and herself until the heat death of the sun.
Yeah, I read about that one. I didn't get that one, but I read about it.
I got it, and they make it is incredibly unclear that is what's happening, because it's told from Renardo's point of view, but the way it kind of goes down is, you know, the narrator describes Zenobia freezing herself, and then she freezes the Skyripper and Renardo, and then the next thing Renardo knows, he's standing in a burnt out wasteland, and the sun is massive in the sky, and it keeps expanding, and then he's incinerated. The end. And I was like, what? Excuse me? So I had to read the little ending descriptor, and that explained what was going on. And then I was still like, excuse me? Because they didn't make that very clear at all. It was a very weird ending, but I kind of dug it.
It's very, very strange, yes.
It was probably the most choose-your-own-adventure death of the lot. Because it's just so, like, out of nowhere and bizarre. Like, 1 minute you're on a swashbuckling adventure to save the world from an evil empire, and the next you're waiting out the heat death of the universe. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little weird that way.
It's a little weird, but I appreciated it because I love a good creepy choose-your-own-adventure death, but they didn't quite explain it well enough. And then I got the true Iblis Stone ending where you just turn into a horrible monster and you kill everybody.
Yep.
And then I got the ending where the true Skyripper ending where you build the Skyripper and you take it to the battlefield and you use it just once and it tears a hole in reality.
Yes, So I got that one
Okay.
For the Sky Ripper.
Okay.
I got two. Like I said, I got 3 Lapino endings.
What are they? Like just like little
one
short blurbies?
one I got is I wanted to do one where it was I wanted to start because like I didn't want to take like the obvious path. I wanted to like explore and like see if I could start one and then wrap it into another basically. So I got one where you rescue Lapino.
Yep.
And then you go for the Sky Ripper instead.
Right.
So you get the core, and then you take the core to get used, and Lapino gets killed in that encounter, and so Renardo goes on a roaring rampage or revenge rampage, and it's eventually revealed that Lapino faked his death, and then he kills you in the end.
Okay.
And so that one I got, and it's one where it was funny, like, getting that one second, because, like, it's like Lapino is a traitor, but then Renardo gets caught up in his own emotions about, like, his best friend.
Right.
And so when he's like, oh, Lapino, you will be avenged! And then he sees his friend and he's alive and everything's great, and then Lapino stabs him.
Right. Man, that's great.
I got... what was the other one? I got one where my Iblis Stone one.
Oh, yes.
Was where I got the stone. Then I abandoned that for the core.
Okay.
Then I tried my hardest to abandon the bloodlust of the stone.
Oh, so you went to the mountain.
Yeah, I went to the mountain to meditate, and in that one, which is one of my favorite endings in this game, actually, Renardo gets inner peace, and he becomes enlightened.
Oh my god.
And, so he goes to the final battle, and before he can kill the Emperor, he sits and meditates.
Oh my god.
And he shows the ravens the ways of peace and harmony, and the ravens all see him, and they are amazed and stunned at his sudden message. Nah, just kidding. A raven cuts his head off.
Oh no. That's awesome.
I almost died.
Oh man.
I laughing.
That's amazing.
At just how abrupt it was. Just he died.
Oh great, thanks game. Awesome. So what was your Sky Ripper ending? Was it the same one as mine?
I think it was the same one as yours, where I put the whole thing together. And then I tested it out. I think
You did the testing.
I took it to the scientists to test it, and they were like, oh, well, now it'll work more efficiently. And then you bring it to the battlefield, and it tears a hole in reality. You use it, you win, and then the rip just keeps happening.
Yeah. That's basically what I got. I got the like you assemble it, you take it to scientists. The scientists are like, we don't know, it might fuck everything up, so you should go see Calaveras. And then I go saw Calaveras, and Calaveras is like, you have a 1 in 128 chance of destroying.
Oh, you got that?
Yeah.
I got a different one.
Oh, okay.
I got one where Calaveras upgraded it.
Really?
To make it more efficient. I don't know which choice you made where we differed.
That's weird.
But yeah, I took it. I think actually, you know what? What happened is
I think I know what you did. You assembled it and then tested it on the battlefield, and then maybe took it to Calaveras?
Yeah.
Okay.
I assembled it like completely, and then I took it to Calaveras, and he says, "Oh, well, I can make it more efficient because mine like talked about how the device would like make a grinding whirring sound." And so Calaveras fixed it for me, and he made it way more efficient and stuff. And so when I ended up using it in the final battle, it destroyed the whole world.
It destroyed reality. Because see, that's the difference, is that because I did the whole, like, I assembled it, and then I took it to a bunch of scientists at the observatory, and one of those scientists was like, string theory! If you use this weapon, it might pull on one of the many, many strings holding the universe together, and then the universe would collapse, right? So then I take it to Calaveras to be inspected even more, and then Calaveras is at first like, yeah, it's interesting. And then Renardo mentions what the other scientists said about string theory, and then that's what made Calaveras realize, like, oh no, you shouldn't use it. And then, so Renardo never uses it, but he uses it just once in the final battle. And that one time, a 1 in 128 chance, it destroys the universe. Yeah. A lot of these endings end like that.
And I was like reading the wiki to just kind of like refresh myself and, see what other details I could pull from it. And there's like, every so often there'll be a thing on the TV tropes page and it's like, make reference to like an element that I didn't even encounter.
Yeah.
Like, there's an ending where Renardo meets his evil mirror self.
What?
And he goes to, a parallel Renardo comes out.
What?
And he's,
I didn't get that one. What steps do you have to follow to do that?
I know!
Oh man, I wish this game was more efficient to go through, because if it was, I would try for every ending. But the problem is you can't skip the text.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest problems. That you have to go through that first intro every time.
Mm-hmm.
Where Renardo first opens up the book and decides what he needs to do.
Right, and you can't skip any text you've heard before. There is no click option to skip through it.
Yeah.
You just have to hear it every single time. So it definitely grated after a while.
Fortunately, the in-game dialogue, the quips about the
Stuff.
pylons or the elevators or how efficient you are in combat or even smashing pots.
Yeah, there's a ton of dialogue.
That all doesn't get repeated ever.
Yeah, there's a lot of
there's
lines.
so much. I also love that this game knows how people play video games.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got an achievement for running in circles on an elevator.
Oh, did you? I didn't get that one. Okay, cool. I should try for that one.
Yeah.
Next.
Which I mentioned this. I mentioned this in the Celeste episode, where it's everyone has an elevator movement.
Yep.
What do you do when you're riding an elevator in a game? Do you hop around? Do you run in circles? Yeah, do you attack? Everyone has something they do when they're either waiting for an elevator or they're in an elevator.
Right. That makes sense. So you got that on accident. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's rad. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a blast. Yeah, the whole game is just...
It is.
It's just fun. You should play it.
I think it's interesting that, the true golden ending is really only a golden ending for Renardo and Zenobia.
Well, it kills the evil emperor, so I guess it's fine.
It does, but it also wipes out the rebellion.
Sure, but, I mean, we've learned from all the other endings that the rebellion is also kind of an asshole, you know?
Yeah.
They were gonna, torture, one of the options is, you can take Zenobia to the rebellion's interrogators, and, Renardo and Lapino are both no, they're monsters.
Yeah, they talk about, how they're going to, basically erase anything that makes her a person.
Yeah, she'll just be a hollowed out husk after this, and I was like, oh, so it's one of those games where both parties are assholes. So
yeah,
ultimately it works out fine because the two asshole parties are both dead. So and then I love that Zenobia and Renardo argue the whole way to Avalon.
Yeah.
I love it. And I wonder if the Avalon reference is a Chris Avalon reference. I don't think so, but it's weird.
I think it's just reference to Avalon.
I know, but they spelled it like that, and I was kind of side-eyeing it. I'm like, are you making another reference? Because there's a ton of those in this game. You know?
There are a fair amount of references to things.
And so I'm kind of is this a reference game? If it is, that's pretty cool. If it's not, you do you. But, whatever. But yeah, these games are kind of exactly why I like Indie Week, because these are games that, if it weren't for Indie Week, I probably wouldn't play.
Yeah, these are, there's so many games throughout Indie Week that we've done where it's I would have never even, thought about this game,
right, because I've got so many other games to play,
Yeah, and, I would be missing out on what I think is probably one of the most fun Indie Week games we've played so far.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but it's fun.
No, it's not my favorite by a long shot, but it is kind of like the way I talked about Mario Odyssey in 2017. It's every so often a lot of the Indie Week games we've played have been heavy, Undertale or Celeste or Doki Doki Literature Club. it's fun to just go back and just play a very fun, adventurous romp.
Yeah, it's just a game that exists to be fun and to try something different.
It's got this quirky, charming narrator, and this gallivanting hero with
saving a princess and
eye patch wearing, swashbuckling, airship riding fox hero.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And his best friend, the sneaky, conniving rabbit.
And there's a mage princess and an evil empire, and all those little tropes that we all love.
Yeah, all those classical, heroic adventure type things, and it's got a fun combat system. The he's got a grappling hook, so he can grab enemies and he can throw them around, and yeah, it does just enough things right
to just be fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
stories is fun. If you sat through all the spoilers, there's still enough for you to play because there's like 50
there's
endings.
24 endings
That's a lot.
that you can unlock. There's 24 ways for Renardo to die.
And one way to survive. So
yeah,
we barely spoiled those endings because between the two of us, I think we got 8. So
yeah, it ended up being...
So you there's still plenty for you to go out and learn and play and enjoy. It's cheap, it's fun. You should play stories. The Path of Destinies.
I also just like the commentary you get sometimes where it's like, one of my favorite lines is when you're doing the true ending, and you find Lapino again. Renardo's like, the narrator says something like, "Oh, Renardo suddenly found his quirks and mannerisms a little less endearing now,
more annoying than anything." Yeah, I love that. And as a final thing, by the way, there's one bullshit death in this game. It doesn't even count as an ending, right? It's when you confront Lapino in the God damn it! I was so mad.
I was like, you know what? I know this is not the right way to go, but I just want to see what happens if I just try to end it now.
If I'm just like, Lapino, you traitor, and then 20 ravens jump out, and the line is literally 20 ravens jump out and stab you to death, and I was like, fucker.
And then it's not even an ending; it is a game over, and you have to do the level over again.
You get the "you have died" and game over. Damn it!
And that's the other thing is that there's always a one-liner when you die.
Yes, and they're always different. There's a ton of voice lines in this game. Please play this game.
I want more games like this that just have a charming narrator throughout.
Absolutely.
This is a very cool thing, and I can, as long as your narrator is different, Stories has the exciting British, thing, and Bastion has the very quiet Southern drawl guy,
The Stanley Parable has a great narrator.
Yeah, as long as your narrator is a character into themselves, I love it.
I love it.
It's great.
So yeah, play stories.
Play stories. It's well worth your time.
It's absolutely worth the 5 to 8 hours, depending on how many endings that you'll get out of it. So yeah, play it.
It's 10 hours to get everything, and then 17 if you want to get all of the endings.
And you won't want to get all of the endings. You'll have to read about them on TV Tropes or Wikipedia or whatever.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, so that actually caps off our story month, basically.
Yeah, we kind of did an accidental story month where we complained about set-piece games, we talked about an anime about stories, and now we're playing kind of a meta-narrative story.
Yeah, playing, stories is basically the antithesis of The Last of Us, and cinematic games, where it's this is a game about playing video games, but, in a more narrative sense.
And it's good. So yeah, that was story month.
That was story month, yeah.
An unintentional theming. We just kind of read the schedule and then went, oh, look at that! So, happy accidents. So...
Yeah, so thanks to Vistager for use of our background music. You can tweet at us about things at the Gorge Podcast. You can send us an email at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. Again, our coffee is ko-fi.com/thegor. And you can also listen to Sarah's podcast about telling stories, which she will tell you about now.
You are so good at these segues. Hey, I'm in another podcast. It's called Big Gay Nerds. It's a live play tabletop RPG podcast where me and a bunch of cool queer friends sit around and we play tabletop games together. We try out different systems, we have a good time, it gets stupid, but it's always fun, so you should come check us out. We're at Big Gay Nerds on SoundCloud, and you can find the links to the rest of our social media from there. Thanks.
Yeah. So that'll do it for us. Man, fuck Lapino.
Fuck Lapino, I trusted you, my dude. I was trying to get with my cool lady friend, my cool cat lady friend, and we're gonna sail off into the horizon, and we're gonna get a happy ending, and then an arrow out of nowhere, just a bolt to the stomach. Seriously? It's bullshit.
Yeah.
So, fuck Lapino.
Fuck you, Lapino.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.